Welcome. We're going to take a look at this particular print we see on the screen here for a eMasterCam user, Mastercam forum. I'm going to go ahead and show you uh, a different version of creating this solid model. So as you can see, we have a basic print showing dimensions like 5 1/4, 4 5/8. The only thing we are missing is actually these front hole details. I'm going to look at those as a 201 diameter for a, say, quarter-inch, quarter 20 tapped holes. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Looking into our design, so we're going to go ahead and start with the option of create primitives, primitive block. So it starts off asking for a base point on that. Our base point is going to be this location. So you can see that since I had a few numbers locked in from last time I was here, that it actually created the solid right off the bat. Make sure that you actually put this, expand this out, because you'll find that when you first start, it'll look like this. You go ahead and expand that out using the arrow. Whenever you see one of those, you'll want to expand that out. You'll also want to set this for solids. What I have done is force values. So looking, for example, if I unselect those, I can actually, they turn yellow. I can go ahead and do all types of mathematical equations, and also I could also force it and still do the same thing. But in this case, looking at a value of 3 plus 1/2, the way they defined it, I also, then I'm going to go to the, in this case, let's real quickly look at this. This is length, this is width, and this is height. So looking at the width, they show a 1 inch by 1/2 dimension, and the thickness in this case on that is 1 inch. You see that I'm coming from the lower left hand corner using this option here, where of course if I move, I can move to different anchor points by definition from that origin. So lower left hand corner. So I'm going to apply that one. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this across real quickly here, is that I've only created up to this 3.5 dimension here. I haven't created the tip end here. I'm going to actually add that as a separate solid. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull this back. So adding the end piece here, we have a dimension of 5 1/4, and I need to subtract 3.5. And these are set up as fractionals. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm actually going to do that math right here. So I'm going to do a quotation, and I'm going to want to do this. So I want to say 5 plus a quarter, the bracket. So that has the mathematics for that one. So it's going to take 5 inches plus a quarter dimension, put those together. And I'm going to give a minus, and then another bracket to another set of math. The other set of math is the 3 plus half inch dimension there with another bracket. Now when I hit enter, I get 1.75. I could have also just done 5 1/4 minus 3.5, but showing you a little bit of how you can do some of the math. Now I still have the height. In this case, the height was 1.5 from before, so using our last reference, 1.5 there. But now the thickness has changed. The thickness is actually a half-inch dimension, so 0.5. Of course, I put in a wrong value there, so it's giving me that. So 0.5 had too many points in there, so it actually gives you a syntax error. So that's not a problem. Enter on that. And I'm going to use the lower left-hand anchor point for that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, it's from the bottom up, it's a 1/4 inch where that actual half-inch dimension starts from. And it's also starting at our 3.5 inch and our X dimension. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is start off with using our fast point mode here. I can use the button here, I can use my spacebar on my keyboard, or because I have it actually added and turned on in my auto cursor settings being default to fast point mode, that gives me the option to actually start typing it. So I'm going to put in the dimension to start from in x, always being x the first value, 3.5 plus, in this case, I'm sorry, comma, separator. So your first value is always going to be x, second value is always going to be y, first, third value is always going to be x. So where's my next value start from? That's going to be a y value of 0, then comma for my z, and in this case, I'm going to put 0.250. As you can see, I'm coming from this datum right here, the lower left-hand corner. I'll hit enter. You can see that it actually put that block centralized to the endpoint of this block here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that one. Be done. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually take this and add it to this block. I'm going to go over here to our solids options to add boolean. It's asking me for a target. This is going to be my main body, and then on the piece that I would like to have it actually boolean added to it, this particular end piece here. I'll use the end selection. So now when I come back and select this, you can see it's all one entity at this point. I'm going to use the Alt-Z keyboard control to bring up my levels. My first one is going to be my solid, and I'm going to set up 2 for my solid wire geometry, being that the wire that I need a certain amount of wireframe to actually cut these certain holes and dimensions and that arc that's already in there. So I'm going to go ahead and say apply in this case, and now I'm going to start to look at what was the other thing I needed. So those other hole locations. So let's bring this back across real quick. Look at that. We have a hole here, in this case a half 13, so you need a 5/16 drilled through hole. We have also this dimension here, this half arc that we need to be able to slice through to give us this cut through. And we also have the 2 front holes. So I'm going to unshade, and I'm going to change down here at the lower bottom. I'm going to left click and change my color to 12. Also, you can notice that level 2 is set, so anything that I draw from here out will be on that level. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use the option for create arc circle center point, and I can use an option for radius or diameter. In this case, I can also use a keystroke. So that they call out, I know I want to use a 5/16 call out, so I'm going to hit D on my keyboard. You'll notice that this highlights up here and it's ready for a value. So in that case, I'll put 5/16. So I have an arc. It shows me a preview, and now it's actually enter the center point. So in this case, since we had that fast point mode set up, now I can go ahead and look at the dimensions, and the first value being x, 4 plus 5/8, comma to be my separator, and in this case, coming from that bottom up, it's 3/4 as they've got it, so 3/4, and it created that at the bottom at 0, following our left-hand corner datum on that. So now I want to do is I want to create another arc, but what happens is it's an active entity. So if I go ahead and change that diameter value, this value of geometry is going to change. So I'm going to hit the apply, staying in the arc creation. Now I'm going to hit, in this case I have a radius call out, so I'll hit R on my keyboard, and I'll put in what they have of 0.718 and enter. Okay, so now they call that value out. They call it an X value of 1 3/8, and then they have a 0.030 value being, in this case, because I'm using our Y value, a minus value. So going ahead and typing in 1 plus 3/8, comma, minus 0.03, and enter. So that applied that one. I'm going to go ahead and apply. I'm going to now actually change so that I can put the holes on the front view here. I need to be able to put them on this front face that we see here. There's 2 hole locations. These 2 locations here that go through. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is diameter, and I said I was going to use a 0.201, being a 1/4 inch diameter, a 201 for a 1/4 20. To verify that, I can right click in here, go to tap tables, pull up the cap tables, and look for 1/4 20. That's coming along here soon here. 1/4 20 is right here. We can see it's a 201. So as soon as I select that, it automatically put the 201 back up in there for me. So setting that value. Now, what I need to do is I'm going to change to this front plane. So I'm going to come down here to planes and say front. So now we're looking at it as Z0, looking at this front plane here, still coming from this position. So I have that first value there. So I hit enter, and you can see that it's actually rotated that arc in that right plane. So the first value coming from there is 0.5, comma, 0.5. There's our first one. Secondary one is 0.5 plus 2 inch, comma, 0.5. Now, because I didn't lock it in, you can see that it automatically went to a larger diameter. So I just hit D and 0.201, or I could have actually gone down here to our last drop it, last 4 options, select that, enter, and go ahead and say OK, being done with that. So you can see now we've created the actual 4 arcs that we need to actually slice this model on that. Okay, what we're going to do now is add these cut throughs, being these are our cookie cutter shapes to cut through our solid. So I'm going to use the option over here on the left hand side, extrude solids, selecting this profile, and I'm picking from the same quadrant area. In this case, they're pointing down. We have these 2 arrows that select that come down. I need them to actually cut the other direction, going up through the solid model. So I can either select the end point of each arrow and flip it, or I can, in this case, reselect and use the first to the last, reverse it all, and then green check. Now what I want to do is I want to cut this shape through this body on that. So I'm, in this case, say extend through all. You can see we have the 2 arcs cut through that we needed. Now I'm going to go back to the MRU bar and use the same option, but selecting these 2 arcs. They fall in the direction we want. Moving our dialog out of the way. I want to cut, and I might say, hey, 0.201 minus 1 inch deep. And then I'll go to a specific distance, and 1 inch is good. So we can see we cut that solid into there. Okay, so now what I've got in this case is everything I need wireframe wise from here out. So we can see that we have the basic holes. Now what we need is these chamfers, and we're basically done with that shape. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is left click on the word level and set my active drawing level to 1 by selecting the first column, going to the second column and turning off our wire and green check. So now what we can go ahead and do is we can see we have the solid here. We're going to use the option of solid 1 distance chamfer, being at 45 degree. We're going to deselect solid body. I don't want to see these 2 active, being solid body selection or solid face, only edge. Selecting this edge here and reaching through the model to the back side, or I could rotate it if I want, and selecting this edge here. 2 edges we want to go ahead and chamfer. End selection, value of 0.25. See, it creates the chamfers there. I'm going to go ahead and create another chamfer, but let's look at that, what chamfer that is. So bringing this back across, right here they say 1/16 by 45 chamfer. So I've got 2 values to work with. So in that case, using those two value options, being a distance and an angle, I will use the edge selection, selecting that edge. Gives me an option to look at a different edge, but in this case, no, that's the edge I want, being this top edge here. That, I'm going to agree end selection, and it was distant, was 1/16 by 45. So that gave us that. Last thing I got to do is actually this needs to be a full round. So I'm going to go ahead and go back over here and use the option of fillet solids. Using the edge option, I'm going to pick this edge and this edge here, and selection. And our overall part is 1.5 in height. 1.5 divide by 2 for the radius. 750, and apply that. So that looks like that should take care of that shape looking at our print here. All the little details we needed to complete that. I hope you find this useful.